Romans 8, 5-8. For those who live according to the flesh set their minds on the things of the flesh, but those who live according to the Spirit set their minds on the things of the Spirit. For to set the mind on the flesh is death, but to set the mind on the Spirit is life and peace. For the mind that is set on the flesh is hostile to God, for it does not submit to God's law. Indeed, it cannot. Those who are in the flesh cannot please God. Romans 2:8. But for those who are self-seeking and do not obey the truth, but obey unrighteousness, there will be wrath and fury. James 4:6. But he gives more grace. Therefore it says, God opposes the proud, but gives grace to the humble. Romans 12:3. For by the grace given to me, I say to everyone among you, not to think of himself more highly than he ought to think, but to think with sober judgment, each according to the measure of faith that God has assigned. James 4:10. Humble yourselves before the Lord, and he will exalt you. Ephesians 4:22. To put off your old self, which belongs to your former manner of life, and is corrupt through deceitful desires. Galatians 1:10. For I am now seeking the approval of man or of God. Galatians 1:10. For am I now seeking the approval of man or of God? Or am I trying to please man? If I were still trying to please man, I would not be a servant of Christ. Proverbs 27:2. Let another praise you, and not by your own mouth, a stranger, and not from your own lips. John 5:44. How can you believe when you receive glory from one another, and do not seek the glory that comes from the only God? Philippians 2:21. For they all seek their own interests, not those of Jesus Christ. Jeremiah 17:9. The heart is deceitful above all things, and desperately sick. Who can understand it? Timothy 2:9. Likewise also that women should adorn themselves in respectable apparel, with modesty and self-control, not with braided hair and gold or pearls or costly attire. Corinthians 10:24. Let no one seek his own good, but the good of his neighbour. Revelation 18:1-24. After this I saw another angel coming down from heaven, having great authority, and the earth was made bright with his glory. And he called out with a mighty voice, Fallen, fallen is Babylon the Great. She has become a dwelling place for demons, a haunt for every unclean spirit, a haunt for every unclean bird, a haunt for every unclean and detestable beast. For all nations have drunk the wine of the passion of her sexual immorality, and the kings of the earth have committed immorality with her, and the merchants of the earth have grown rich from the power of her luxurious living. Then I heard another voice from heaven saying, Come out of her, my people, lest you take part in her sins, lest you share in her plagues, for her sins are heaped high as heaven, and God has remembered her iniquities. John 3:16 and 17. For God so loved the world that he gave his only Son, that whoever believes in him should not perish, but have eternal life. For God did not send his Son into the world to condemn the world, but in order that the world might be saved through him. Seek the Lord and his strength. Seek his presence continually. But remember this, Romans 8:5-8. For those who live according to the flesh set their minds on the things of the flesh, but those who live according to the Spirit set their minds on the things of the Spirit. For to set the mind on the flesh is death, but to set the mind on the Spirit is life and peace. For the mind that is set on the flesh is hostile to God, for it does not submit to God's law. Indeed, it cannot. Those who are in the flesh cannot please God. So every single OnlyFans, Tinder apps, YouTube, Facebook, and the million other platforms there are out there, it is mainly women showing their bodies for money. Ladies, when you have 8 men in a rotation of dates, your mind is set on the flesh. Men, when you're constantly chasing women for sex, your mind is on the things of the flesh. The things of the spirit involve emotion, love, kindness, empathy, sympathy, all the things that are attractive in a person other than their looks. If you are judging things on looks, your mind is set on the flesh. And of course, those who are in the flesh cannot please God, because this fleshly life will be going away, and there will only be a spiritual life. Of course, you can touch things, but I felt the spirit and everything else, drugs, sex, booze, rock and roll, pales to nothing in comparison to how the spirit makes you feel. And having been a recipient of it, which is how I was able to make almost 600 videos about sciences I'd never even heard of, never even looked at. Life is going to be difficult, and it's going to get worse with these platforms. Minds are set on the flesh. Nothing wrong with the flesh inside of marriage, but then people go outside of marriage too, which means their minds are still on the flesh and have nothing to do with the marriage vows that they took. Take your mind off the flesh. Look in the Bible for what are the fruits of the Spirit. The fruits of the Spirit are charity, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, forbearance, gentleness, mildness, faith, modesty, self-control, chastity. These are all things you discipline yourself with. When you have discipline, you can focus your mind on anything. You can view your thoughts as clouds that float through your mind. You are not your thoughts are like clouds. Examine each one. Take each one into captivity first before allowing it out and following it where it goes. This means if a thought in your head says, I'm in a relationship, but that person is highly attractive and I believe they're attracted to me, you should take that thought into captivity and say, how committed is my relationship? Am I married? Am I just dating? These will all give you a different answer. If you are married, you keep that thought in jail and then you dismiss it from your thoughts. So what if they're good looking? My partner's good looking, and when we reach the new kingdom, we'll be young forever, if that's the course of events from God. But while I'm here, I will honour my contract that I made using God's words in front of God. And I will take that thought into captivity, and then I will execute that thought, because its ways lead to cheating, unfaithfulness, infidelity, and ultimately in front of God, death. So remember Romans 8, 5-8, ladies and gentlemen. For those who live according to the flesh set their minds on the things of the flesh. But those who live according to the Spirit set their minds on the things of the Spirit. For to set the mind on the flesh is death, but to set the mind on the Spirit is life and peace. For the mind that is set on the flesh is hostile to God, for it does not submit to God's law. Indeed, it cannot. Those who are in the flesh cannot please God. Thank you very much. My name is Lee. I follow the Christ, and we want you to live. Thanks a lot. Bye.